comes to our church weekly. And he is very involved in the men's ministry, and I've known him now for about a year and a half, and have seen great growth in his life as he follows after Christ. And his story is one really that I think that describes the change that only Christ can make. So, yeah, have some fun, my friend.
Good evening, guys. First of all, I need to read this. Whatever I am now, it is all because God poured out such kindness and grace upon me. I struggle with public speaking. I'm not a public speaker. I've given my testimony before, but this right here makes me nervous. So if I appear nervous tonight, gentlemen, please forgive me. I struggled with coming up here, so I talked to God about it, and I said, what is it that you want me to say to these men? Both those that came with me and those that stay here. And it's a story of hope. It's a story that only Jesus can save a life. And he wanted me to remind you that we're all the same. I'm going to take off my shirt now, if that's okay. Because the only difference between all of us is the props that we put in our lives. Right? My glasses, my shirt, my false teeth. They're all part of who I am. We put props in our lives.
So far, some I've got one.
Can I read you something, guys? This is something that was written about my brother and I. The slamming of the door shatters my heart. On the other side are two small boys. They themselves shattered, broken, battered, abandoned. So they have been, and again they shall be. In and out of our home they have wandered and left their mark of despair, left their mark of hope. My mind travels back to the bittersweet day the cold Saskatchewan wind blew them quite literally into our lives. On our doorstep are the two small boys, a tiny bag of clothes, their only belongings. They are pale and dirty, sullen and sad. Dropped off by parents long gone. Dropped off for a time as long or as short as those parents deem best. In and out, those little boys wander. The length of this sojourn has infused my family with the hope of permanency. I, a pre-adolescent, am convinced they are ours. Without reservation, the living room becomes my bedroom, as mine becomes theirs. At night, I cradle and rock the boy who cries for his absent mother. I comfort the boy who minds the other. Morning brings hope. They are my hobby. They are my pastime. They are my passion. They are the love and the light of my life. And now, they are on the other side of the slammed door. They are with their father, who has revealed his plan to make a new start. His plan to negate and eradicate the past. His plan to negate and eradicate us. The slamming of the door shatters my heart. I will never be the same. I was born the son of a white man and a Cree woman. I don't remember my parents being a couple because they divorced. I was probably nine months old when they separated, and they divorced between that and my younger brother's birth. I have 2 or 3 memories of my mom growing up, and they're not very healthy, really. One memory is of the police being at our door, and Mom answering the door and telling the police officers that the man that they were looking for wasn't in our home. He was in my bed. Another time was when she dropped us off at the movie house. For those of you who are really young, we used to watch movies in theaters and stuff like that. And the movie that was playing that day was called The Ten Commandments. Cecil B. DeMille's Ten Commandments, which is about a 3.5-hour movie. Mom dropped us off, and we went through 1.5 times of that movie before she came back. She went to bingo and off drinking. I always found ways to feed myself and my younger brother. After about 6 years of age, my dad came to pick us up. In 1972. By that time, I'd lived at my grandma's, my mom's, my dad's, my Uncle Charlie's, my other grandma's, and then my dad's place. In the first 6 years of my life, I lived in 6 different homes in 3 cities and 2 provinces. I never felt like I belonged. Getting passed back and forth, I never had that warm feeling of home. Although I hoped that my dad would bring my brother and I a better life, it was not to be so. I wanted him to be my Superman. I wanted him to save me. During the time of all this upheaval, I continued from a young age up until actually almost my 20s to wet the bed almost nightly. And my dad's way of correcting the bedwetting was to rub my face like a dog in my own urine and then beat me. Or give me a licking. And for those of you who are younger, a licking to us older men is not necessarily a strap, although I got the strap. I remember getting the guitar strap on the hands or on the bottom, and if you moved your hands, you got it on the face. That was what punishment looked like for me when I was young. I sought a way in my entire life to belong to something, to someone. I just wanted to belong. Anybody else relate? So, I fell in with a bad crowd. I dabbled with the occult because I knew that there was something out there. I always known, just this inside of me, I always known there was something bigger than me. And for whatever reason, I settled for a counterfeit. Tarot cards and readings and horoscopes and things of that nature. And eventually I joined a gang. At 11 years old, my dad allowed my brother and I to start smoking cigarettes. And later that year, he was the first one to get us high on marijuana. My dad's idea of teaching us boys about sex was very sick. I won't say exactly what it was, guys, but they call it sexual abuse today. Finally, at about 12 years of age, I was in gym class, and we were playing floor hockey that day. And out of nowhere, the play was at the other end of the gym, and I don't know, anybody here remember Ken Dryden? He used to go like this. When the play was at the other end of the ice, he'd kind of go like this on his hockey stick, and it was the coolest thing I ever saw in my life. So I was doing that. I was just sitting here watching him, and for whatever reason, I flew up about 2 or 3 feet and back about the same amount, through the net, and just lay there writhing on the floor. Later on, I kind of tried to find out what that was. Medically, they said I had a muscle spasm. Maybe a seizure. Maybe it was some of the stuff, the occult stuff that I was getting into. Trying to seek somewhere to belong, I joined a gang. I started my own gang when I was 13 years of age called the Vigilantes in Edmonton. And we were just a bunch of kids that really had nowhere to go. We stole cars, we smoked cigarettes and weed, and tried to be a little more familiar with the females than we should have. When my dad found out, I got beat pretty good, and later that year, he moved us from Edmonton to Medicine Hat. I didn't stay in the Hat. I was very uncomfortable. I didn't like it there. It was from a big city. I wanted life. And Medicine Hat, nothing there but steers and queers. So I ran away, and I ran to Regina. And I bounced around from house to house. Joined a gang while I was here, and got into some harder drugs. I did LSD quite often. I want to tell you guys that sometimes the facts and the truth don't line up. In my life, the fact is that I shouldn't have a brain, and in many ways I should have died. I've OD'd a number of times. But the truth is Jesus Christ. That's what the truth is. And he says that I am the head and not the tail. He says that he loves me and has since the beginning of time, and that he knit me in my mother's womb. He has that kind of familiarity with me. I think I'm just using this as a prop, guys. About 15 years of age, maybe 16. There were these 2 hot young ladies that came and sort of kind of invaded the gang that I was with. We were in front of a pinball place hanging out, and I've always thought myself to be, especially when I was younger, a ladies' man. So they were talking, and I kind of moseyed my ways over there, and they were talking about this fella, Jesus. Well, I'll tell you what, I thought I was bigger than that Jesus. I was wearing my gang colors, and I thought, I'd like to pick up one of these ladies. So I said to them, it was October, I said, you know what, I'd like to hear more about this fella. Why don't we go to your place and talk about it? So I got in their car, and very quickly, in the back seat, and the two ladies were in the front, and very quickly I learned that one was married, and they both had kids. And so anyway, now I'm trapped. I'm in the car, off I went. And you know, I walked into this lady's house, and this, how do I say it? This conviction came over me that I had to take my colors off. I had the Grim Reaper on the back, and I just couldn't wear it in this Christian home. I don't know why. At this time, I don't. On that night, I gave my life to Jesus, and I went home and I burned up all my pornography, and life was good, but there was no discipling. There was nobody that came alongside and said, listen, Rod, you got to give this stuff up. You have to do a few things to make your life a little bit better. And I fell away really quickly. And the Bible talks about when you clean up and then you kind of go back, it's kind of like going back to your vomit, right? And that's what I did, basically. And I got into harder drugs. I got into cocaine and T's and R's, and everybody understand what that is? Needle drugs. And life got really bad, guys. Like really, really bad. I abused women. I abused my kids. I was a piece of crap, honestly. And by this time, I'd had a couple kids. I'd had a couple stints in jail. 2 years less a day I got for armed robbery. Me and a fella needed drug money, and we beat up this poor little fella and took his money. And a number of different stupid things like that. Just kind of fast forward a little bit, I was living with my lover, and we had some kids, and she had decided, guys, that was it. She didn't want any part of me anymore. And I've never felt like that before. I didn't really care before. I didn't care enough about women before. If they kicked me out, next, right? But I really loved this one. I had children with her, and this hurt. And I went through such a season of depression and self-anger. I wanted to kill myself. So what I did, this was December the 24th. I can't remember the year, sorry, I'm getting older. But I cried out and I said, God, if you're real, man, if you're actually real, I need you to step up to the plate. I need to know. I'm going to phone 3 churches. It was a deal I made with God. I wouldn't suggest doing this. And I'm going to see. And if somebody, this was December the 24th, one of the busiest days of the year for a pastor, I'm sure. First, I left a message. Guy never did get back to me. Second fella said, well, this is the busiest. He said, I can see you January the 13th. Dude, I want to kill myself today. So I phoned up a local church here in Regina called Avonhurst Pentecostal. And I got to speak to the pastor named Doug Lancaster right away. And he said, his first words were, I'm really busy. And my heart just sank. And he said, but I'll make time for you. Come on down. So I sat in Doug's office. Now, some of you might know who he is. I'm going to tell you exactly what Doug told me. I spit out my story for him about life being dirty and feeling like crap. And he just looked at me and he said, Rod, you are messed up. You need Jesus. And he led me in the sinner's prayer that day. And from that day forward, life has never been the same. I've had hope because of Jesus. One of my favorite sayings, guys, is there is hope, ... there is Jesus. And it's in the ... that we live our lives. We work that out daily. It's not an easy thing. Okay, I took a thing called Cleansing Stream, and I started feeling good, and I started having some of these things that were generational curses. Does that make sense? Like just crap that had built up in my family's life, my dad's life, my kid's life, right? And that kind of fell off. The need to do drugs fell off. The need to smoke cigarettes fell off. Pornography fell off. God did a really big work in my life. An amazing work. A work that only God could do. He gives me hope. One day following God is better than every single day before I met him. Life as a Christian man isn't necessarily easy. About 18 months into me being a born-again believer, I was sitting up late one night watching TV, watching the news, which was my custom. And the news story said, so-and-so was murdered tonight. And here's who did it. It's my oldest son. Had stabbed a boy to death in a drug-induced, gang-related home invasion. He stabbed a boy to death. And I'll tell you, if I didn't have Jesus in my life, I wouldn't have made it through that. I would have went back using. If I didn't have good friends like Tim Caswell back there, and Les in my life, I probably would have went back using. But as I said, even the worst of days with Jesus is better than what I had before. I have a hope, I have a future, and God has taken my mess, plus some age, you could probably tell by the gray hair, and He's made a message for His glory. There is hope, guys. There's hope for every one of us. There's Jesus. I don't know how to wrap this up. This is the third time I've ever given my testimony like this. I don't know how to wrap it up. Would you guys do me a favor? Would you guys do me one favor? Would you bow your heads? Would you? I just want to ask one thing. Is there anybody here that would say, I need a relationship with Jesus? Would you just shoot up your hand real quick? If there's nobody, I'm not going to prolong this. If you want to approach me later, guys, approach me later and I'll pray with you. I'll tell you a little bit more about my testimony. Okay? Thanks so much.